how would you explain the hirakyo? And you'd say, well, I can explain it as a hif-fill, but that's not going to work. You can't have a hif-fill and a PL together. So that's not going to work. And so there's really no box that this is going to fit. And then I have to think about my call options that I've memorized. And when I think of a call, that's no call. And so this is something very strange. And again, when you see something very strange, start thinking of a hollow root or a geminate root. Those are the two things we want to go after. And so once we do that, let's start thinking about things like performatives and so forth. So the first thing is a performative, and I see a noon. Well, a noon, of course, can be a part of an aton letter, like a call formation. And so we've got to keep like a call imperfect in mind, or really any of the imperfects in mind. But also the noon of the nifal has to be in our mind also. And so as we look at this, I'm thinking of a noon for some type of imperfect, but also I'm thinking about a noon for a nifal. Those are my two options. The next thing I want to do is look for some type of course, thematic vowel. And I see this kametz here, this patach under the samek. And if I were looking at that, I would say, that could very easily be something like a nifal, because nifal is red. And so nifal immediately comes to mind. Also, the call imperfect also would come to mind for that too. But now I see a bait with a dot, and that dot there immediately makes me suspicious of a gemination. And therefore, the dagesh here helps me with the notion that this may very well be a geminate form. And if it's a geminate form, then I have to explain this ending, and there's where a call would really help me. When I look at that, that looks like a participle ending. And indeed, that's the only way to explain this form. We have to look at this and say, look, this must be the thematic vowel, because if we make this the thematic vowel, there's no way to explain the patach. And so with this, I've got it down really to two forms. It's either a nifal form of some sort, or it's a call, imperfect stative of some sort. But when I look at this ending, there's no way I can get a call out of this. It just won't work. But the nifal still will work, because in the nifal there's one form that can have this eem ending, and that is a participle. And sure enough, that would explain everything. What you would have here is the accent being shifted by the participle, and what I normally want to see is the long kametz, but it's got to reduce in a closed unaccented syllable. So it stays a patach, and then what would be a patach here is being reduced because it's so far away from the accent. And so indeed, and this is going to be our answer, a nifal participle, masculine plural absolute. And of course there's your masculine plural absolute right there. So again, a very difficult form. These forms to parse are very difficult. You're going to have to work diligently. Let me go back and go ahead and do the other forming, because I think these are so difficult you need me to do another one for you. There we have a call perfect second masculine singular. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the form already collapsed. And so the preformative vowel is none here. We have no preformative vowel in the call perfect. Now if we were in a hif-fill or nifal, there's a preformative, but no preformative here. Next is the thematic vowel, and that's what gets knocked back. You see, it would normally be here if we had the R3, but we're having again the collapsing of the form. So I'm going to put the hovering dagesh, and I'm going to go to my thematic vowel since there's no preformative. Next is the call, and we're doing a 2ms. And so what I need for that is, of course, a ta, like this. And when I add some kind of ending to it, obviously the hovering dagesh has got to land. But now we've got to think about some of our general remedies that we have to apply to this. And when you have a syllabic ending, suffix, onto a verb like this, we've got to have something connected. There has to be a connecting vowel. And what that's going to be is like a holem vav. And so we'll put the holem vav on there. And so the holem vav will take the accent, and so we will put the accent there, but we're not going to change this. at all because this is closed unaccented, and so it has to have a short vowel, and so it does. And so this will be our form. And again, those are the steps that we're going to have to follow. So now what I want you to do is turn to the end of the chapter, and let's look just very briefly at the chart in the back here. Again, we have the hofal over on the far right here. And again, the first syllable is going to be like an R1 vav verb, and I discussed that with you. But again, the general remedies will apply to it. But again, notice what I have at the top. I have the preformative vowels all the way across, and then I have, of course, the thematic vowels. And again, you need to know those. And as we come to the Hifil, of course, I give you those, and I talk about the three imperfect forms that are possible, the normal gemination, transpose, double, and so forth, give you the participles. And then the Nifal is actually a Nafal. And then I give you especially the forms of the infinitives and the participles because they're a little different. And then again, the problem is always in the call. And you can see in the perfect, you can have strong forms or collapsed forms. And in the imperfect, you basically have two forms possible, normal and transposed gemination, and so forth. So again, and I show you some strong. Again, you want to use this chart. You want to be looking at it very closely as you go through this chapter. Well, that is the lectures for the grammar. If you've gotten to this point, congratulations. And if you've really done your work well, then you understand the parsing of Hebrew, the formation of Hebrew. You understand the phonology and the morphology. And I tell you, you're ready now for an intensive course in syntax, and you'll be well on your way to learning biblical Hebrew. And so study the chapter very closely, answer the questions, do your exercises, and I do hope you use this for the glory of God.